Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. We will continue reading from the 40 principles of the religion. And there are a couple of pages from the 32nd principle. It would be the second of the fourth quarter, which is about fear. And the very last part we have read, the very last thing about the prominent Muslims who wished that practically they did not exist out of fear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. We know that one of them was about Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. We know that he definitely was his heart was detached and from this world, and he led that kind of life, almost like an ascetic, and he would not fear facing those in office telling them the truth. And it seems that there is a link between abandoning the material world, really, and the ability to abandoning. Simply, you are not worried anymore about losing things, and your ability to face injustice. And as we said, the very last couple of pages of this principle, the slaves turning from fear to hope. And the human being should always be shuttling between fear and hope. Fear is a whip that drives the slave to happiness, yet it should not be excessive to the point where it causes despair, for that is blameworthy. Rather, if it predominates, it should be mixed with hope. And this is also about facing tribulations, hardships, tragedies. And when you think that there is no hope, you should. It might be illogical to be hopeful, but you should, because you know that if it's a difficulty, then hope is there. Yusr, the ease is there. Of course, fear should dominate hope so long as the slave is committing sins. It depends on your state of affairs, the state of your heart. As for the obedient person devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he should be balanced between fear and hope. Like Umar when he said, if it were proclaimed that all of the creation will enter paradise except one man, I fear that I would be that man. If it were proclaimed that all of creation will enter hell except one man, I would hope to be that man. Fear and hope, raja wa khawf. Then there's a hadith narrated by Muslim. As for the one who is close to death, hope and having a good opinion of his Lord should dominate him. The Prophet ﷺ said, let none of you die except that he thinks well of his Lord. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once you reach that stage, remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving, oft forgiving. He is merciful. Furthermore, hope is different from empty wishing. It's not what you wish. Truly, the one who does not plant a seed until the earth, yet looks forward to harvesting, is vainly wishful and deluded. not hopeful. The hopeful is he who plants the seed, tills the earth, and attains every means related to his choice. Thereafter, he remains hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will repel natural disasters and thieves and empower him to harvest after his crop grows. For this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إن الذين آمنوا والذين هاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله أولئك يرجون رحمة الله والله غفور رحيم. Verily those who believe and those who migrated and struggled in Allah's path, these are the ones who hope for Allah's mercy. And Allah is forgiving and merciful. In summary, the fruit of hope is encouragement to seek, and the fruit of fear is incitement to flee. But mentioning to flee from sin, and remember, as the scholars have said, it's basically فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, flee to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything you flee from, every threat, every danger, you flee from it to something else except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You flee from Allah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever hopes for a thing seeks it, and whoever fears a thing flees from it. The lowest level of fear is what moves one to abandon sins and turn away from the world. Whatever does not move one to that is merely talking to oneself or passing thoughts that are of no real gravity, like the emotionalism of women that produces no results. Rather, if fear is complete, it results in asceticism. Therefore, we'll now mention asceticism and its meaning. It is what is translated into English as emotionalism of woman. In fact, it is in Arabic as رقة النساء. And one cannot rule out that there is no fruit for that. They have been created like this so that they can take care of babies. Men would give up the husband, the father. Once you have a baby, the man cannot really do the same thing like woman. He can work in a quarry cutting stone from sunrise to sunset, but give the same person a baby for an hour or so and see. I'm not saying it's impossible, but there is a certain nature. You would not wake up like the mother, your wife, waking up for the baby, to feed the baby several times at the very beginning. Any crying, she would wake up and take care of the baby, and probably the man would still be asleep. So he already paved the way in the last paragraph uh, for the talk about aestheticism, الزهد. And Imam Al-Ghazali begins with, as usual, with a few verses, and then he attempts to mention few traditions. We'll talk about them. A few of them are the chain of narrators are problematic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَتَّعْنَ بِهِ أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ زَهْرَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا لِنَفْتِنَهُمْ فِيهِ وَرِزْقُ رَبِّكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. Do not turn your eyes to what we have provided them. Here in the translation of wives, adornment of the worldly life, to test them regarding it. The provision of your Lord is better and more lasting. I think it is really not to pay attention to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given other people, rather than only mentioning that wives. No, it's everything. It's everything. Unless you know of yourself that you are that type of person who, once you see a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would really make wholeheartedly a dua for the recipient to blessing, to bless this recipient and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. No envy, no questioning. If you know that you are that type of person, then just simply Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides the Muslim and non-Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides, and in fact in certain respects, it's like a fountain of gifts. He also said subhanahu wa ta'ala, من كان يريد حرث الآخرة نزد له في حرثه ومن كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤتيه منها وما له في الآخرة من نصيب. Whoever wants the harvest of the afterlife, we increase his harvest for him. Whoever wants the harvest of the world, of this world, we give to him from it, yet he has no share in the hereafter. Yes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said concerning Qarun, so the trio, the Farah and Haman and Qarun, فخرج على قومه في زينته قال الذين يريدون الحياة الدنيا يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون إنه لذو حظ عظيم وقال الذين أوتوا العلم ويلكم ثواب الله خير لمن آمن وعمل صالحا. Qarun, his story is that the Quran alludes to wealth beyond imagination. He was so wealthy that you need a group of people to carry the keys to the safes, to the The keys themselves were so many and so heavy that you need a few people uh, to carry the keys. Mind you, the monies, the wealth, the gold. He came out to his people in his splendor. Those who desire the worldly life said, "If only we had what Qarun has been given. Surely he has great fortune." Those who were given knowledge said, "Woe to you! Allah's reward is better for whoever believes and does righteous deeds." The problem of Qarun is not attaining money. The problem of Qarun is that he attributed what he had to himself. He did not recognize basically that his wealth is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. He attributed this to knowledge that he has. And that's really the issue. That's the problem. Thus he clarified that aestheticism is among the fruits of knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever wakes up with the world as his aspiration, Allah scatters his affair, divides his property, places his poverty before his eyes, and does not give him anything from the world except what was written for him." Whoever wakes up with the afterlife as his aspiration, Allah gathers his aspiration for him, preserves his property, puts his wealth in his heart, and gives him the world despite itself. When the Prophet ﷺ was asked about the Quranic verse, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, مَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ فَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Whomever Allah intends to guide, He opens his breast to Islam. He opens his breast, يشرح. It is basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a metaphorical image of the heart being expanded, enlightened, and also opening also is okay as long as we think of the metaphorically. And about the meaning of opening, he said, when light enters the heart, the breast is opened and emptied. It's not emptied. When fasah, expanded. It was asked, is there a sign for this? He ﷺ said, yes, detachment from the abode of delusion, turning toward the abode of eternity, and preparation for death before it happens. Before it descends, قبل نزوله. The Prophet ﷺ said, be shy of Allah with rightful shyness. The companions said, we are most certainly shy. He said, yet you build homes in which you do not reside and store up food that you do not eat. Well, first of all, the beginning of the hadith is the same. What I found that استحيوا من الله تعالى حق الحياء. This phrase is repeated But what comes thereafter, that's not, the what comes after is different. So after he asked them to be shy of Allah with rightful shyness, استحيوا من الله حق الحياء استحيوا من الله تعالى حق الحياء. They said, يا رسول الله إنا نستحيي والحمد لله. قال ليس ذاك، ولكن الاستحياء من الله حق الحياء أن تحفظ الرأس وما وعى وتحفظ البطن وما حوى ولتذكر الموت والبلى ومن أراد الآخرة ترك زين الدنيا فمن فعل ذلك فقد استحيا. يعني من الله حق الحياء. That's a commentary. With different narrations. With the hadith is Hasan, but the rather than you build homes where you don't reside and you gather food that you don't eat, I'm going to translate now from this hadith. Other than the first phrase, which is the same, the Prophet ﷺ said that he who is really shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he should basically protect his head and what it contains. And the meaning is, see what you stuff your brain with. See what goes on in your head. Protect your intellect, your psyche against all temptations, wrong ideas, false news, fake news, and fake news about not only politics but about the nature of the world. And one should protect the abdomen and what includes. And it means how do you preserve your abdomen? Do not eat except that which is halal. And then remembering death and the nature of this life, that it is temporary. And then ultimately, if you seek the hereafter, you would abandon the adornment of this life. If you do that, then definitely you have been shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a hadith with a very slight difference. مر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم برجل يعظ أخاه في الحياة فقال له دعه فإن الحياة من الإيمان. The difference in the other matan is مر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم برجل من الأنصار. So that's the only difference. But still, the idea is that what we usually do culturally, we ask kids not to be shy. Don't be shy, don't be shy, until they are not shy anymore. Then we blame them. We might punish them for not being shy. It becomes blameworthy. And the meaning of the hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ passed by a man who in one hadith was a man from among the Ansar, the indigenous people of Medina. He was advising his brother not to be shy, and the Prophet ﷺ told him, just leave him in that state of shyness, because shyness is part of faith. And I like that. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever abstains from material things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts wisdom in his heart, causes him to speak with wisdom, teaches him the sickness of the world and its cure, and removes him from the world safely into the home of peace. It's mursal, so it's in the verification. Uh, so it's part of the circulating literature, but it's not a hadith. Wallahu alam. The same thing about the next. Um, we have another four traditions. Three of them are mursal, and one of them is munkar. Rejected, if you will, altogether. So the next one, which is mursal, is the slave does not complete the reality of faith until being unknown. Until being unknown is more beloved to him than being known. And little bit of something is more beloved to him than a lot of it. He also said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for a slave, He makes him abstain from material things, stokes his interest in the afterlife, and gives him insight into the flaws of his ego. And the next hadith is munkar. It's not a hadith in any sense, which could be the meaning is, one might argue that it is okay. Abstain from material things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you. Abstain from what people possess, people will love you. Abstain from material things, no, be detached. How do you abstain from material things? It's not in the absolute sense, of course. Maybe that's why they said also that it is munkar. But let not be detached. I mean, you could be consuming something and you are detached. You could be using a good car, which really is. It is almost one should have a good car. I'm not talking about made of gold and silver and diamonds. A good car that will serve you, but you'd still be detached. You appreciate the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the heart is detached. And if it's really done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you really are tending to something, so you're detached from one thing, attached to another. But you cannot be cannot abstain from material things unless we talk about that which is extra, that which you do not need. And for the most part, most human beings, most Muslims and non-Muslims, except those who some of them, they just don't do it even for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they abstain, or they become minimalists. And so it depends on the intention. And the last hadith, which is, we said it's mursal, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever wants for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him knowledge without formal learning and guidance without explicit direction, let him abstain from material things. Just, really having that kind of deep, intimate remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that might do it, that might be fulfilling that kind of prerequisite for knowledge. That's a possibility. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll deal with the reality of aesthetism, its foundation and its fruit. Until tomorrow inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.